Well, hello, and welcome to episode 185 of Drink the Movies. I am Brian here, as always, with Michaela. And Michaela, we are inching ever closer to October, but do you know what our October sky is an anagram of? The Rocket Boys. And that's what we're talking about today.
The Rocket Boys. Yes, I'm very excited about this film because it had been a really long time since I'd seen it. In fact, I think the only time I saw it was in the theater in 1999, which is when this came out, and I remember it fondly, and I do remember you giving me a little bit of shtick because it's not quite October, but I
Not
really
quite, not
wanted
quite.
this to be in plenty of time to be able to watch this film through the month of October if anybody wanted to, because it's actually really cool. It's historically significant. It's a really good coming of age story. It's got Laura Dern. It's got all the things.
It's got all the things. You had me at Laura Dern. So let's do this, Michaela. Let's go ahead and take a quick break because to talk about October Sky, we're going to need something that is good, that is, it reminds you of fall, and it brings into, some of those flavors that are going to be coming about through the movie. So let's do that. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back to mix up this week's drink.
So, Brian, this film happens in October. It starts in October. It actually goes through an entire school year, but you never know because it's in
Hmm.
like this coal mining town in West Virginia, right?
That's true.
Uh called
So it's always the same time of year
coal,
down in the
right?
coal mine. It's
Right.
called
So it always
Coal
looks like
Mineville or something. Yeah.
it's like it's Coalwood, West Virginia. It's a real
Oh,
place.
Coalwood.
Anyway,
Not anymore.
um, no, not
Spoiler.
anymore. So spoiler warning. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the land is still there, but I picked this because of a couple of reasons. So we like gin. I was really wanting to do something that was like warm and cozy, but also something that was a little bit different because we do a lot. Last fall and the fall before that, we did a lot of like bourbon or whiskey based, like
Hmm. Hmm.
apple cider things. And this is a little bit different because we're going to use Hendrick's gin. It is called the Hot Spiced Apple, and it's really good. So the first
Hmm.
thing you're going to do is you're going to make some spiced apple juice. And you're going to do that by adding 2 cloves, 2 crushed cardamom, 2 star anise, some juniper berries, and 1 peel of an orange into a pot. And you're going to simmer that with some apple juice until it's nice and aromatic. Yeah.
That's right.
And then you're
Yeah.
just going to add this to some gin. It's 1 part gin to 5 parts of the spiced apple juice. No big
Hmm.
deal, right? This could actually be kind of a lobby bar drink because once you got the spiced apple juice made, it's super easy. Now you can serve this cold. You could re-chill it if you want to and serve it cold. I prefer it warm. But you gotta like warm gin, and you gotta be okay with that. Some people maybe not so much because people feel like gin should be refreshing, but I really like this take on it.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I like this take on it too. The apple juice or the spiced cider, I guess as it were, is pretty easy to put together. If you just start going off of just making your own, you can do that. I actually bought just a spiced apple cider from the grocery store, so I didn't even bother with that. I just kind of heated mine up and added the gin to it. But yeah, 5 parts of your apple to 1 part of gin, so that makes it easier if you're making one cocktail, which is what I did, or if you're making a punch bowl worth of this, you could do it in like a crock pot and serve at like a party if you're having your own like Sputnik watch party there as the weather is cooling off. You're watching that overnight. Um, but this was pretty good. I have to admit, Michaela, I got this recipe sent over to me by you. It comes from Hendrick's Gin, so they of course recommend that you use Hendrick's Gin. You could use any sort of like London dry gin that you have. It's going to get you to the same place there. I have to admit, I thought that this sounded like it was not going to be very good. To be honest, I was like, I don't know that gin is going to marry well with those flavors. I don't know about that. I'm fine, I think, in theory, having warm gin, but I was like, that doesn't sound that good. And I made one up and I had it while I was watching the movie, and I have to say, it was pretty good. I was surprised actually at how well the gin worked in this. Now, to that end, if I was going to make this up any other way, gin would be down on the list of things I would use. I would probably
Oh,
pick,
for sure.
bourbon, cognac, rum, before I would get to gin. But the gin was pretty good, and if you wanted to do that, it felt very like I don't know, like Englishy some way, right? It's having it out of a little teacup there, and your
Oh
hot apple
yeah.
cider with some Hendrix. That sounds okay.
Yeah. So we were kind of talking previous to the recording of this about where we would find this or how I found this, and I did. I just found it on the Hendrix site. But if you really wanted to make this like representative, you just add moonshine instead of gin. We talked about that, right? Brian is not a fan of moonshine, and to be honest, neither am I. I like my liquor to taste good, and most moonshine tastes basically like battery acid. But if you find a good moonshine, there are some, like the Smoky Mountains has a moonshine brand that's up there that's amazing, that has a bunch of different flavors. There's an apple pie flavored one, so you could just add it to your spiced apple juice or apple cider or whatever you want to call it, and it would
It's
probably be
true.
pretty good. Probably be pretty good.
And you could use it to power the rocket that you're getting ready to set off into space
That's right.
from your coal mining town. So that is the hot spiced apple from Hendrix Gin. Give it a try and let us know, or if you have any other good like hot apple cider based cocktails, let us know those as we're getting into the season. You know, 'tis the season for those kind of cocktails for sure. So let us know that, and let us go ahead and get another one of these mixed up, Michaela, because we need to talk about October Sky. So let's do that. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to chat about this week's film.
Miss Riley, our job is to give these kids an education, not false hopes.
False hopes? Do you want me to sit quiet? Let them breathe in coal dust the rest of their life?
Miss Riley, once in a while, a lucky one will get out on a football scholarship. The rest of them work in the mines.
How about I believe in the unlucky ones? I have to, Mr. Turner, or I'd go out of my mind.
Spoiler warning for October Sky. If you've not yet seen this 1999 Joe Johnston film starring Jake Gyllenhaal, then you should press pause, because we're going to talk about all the things. You should go make yourself a hot spiced apple drink with Hendrix gin or some moonshine, whatever floats your boat. And then you can come back, because we're going to chat about it.
That's right. And it would be understandable if you didn't catch this because it was released in 1999. You might have been busy watching The Matrix or Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace. But if you did see October Sky, good. It's happy anniversary, 25th year. So there you go. Directed by Joe Johnson, and it stars Jake Gyllenhaal as Homer Hickam, the would-be rocket scientist. His supportive teacher, Miss Riley, is played by Laura Dern. Chris Cooper plays the company coal mining leader and dad of the year, John Hickam. And Chris Owen, William Lee Scott, and Chad Lindberg round out the Rocket Boys of Quentin, Roy Lee, and Odell. So, Michaela, this was based off of a book written by Homer H. Hickam Jr., which is the character that Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be playing here in the film, about his time, growing up there in rural West Virginia in this coal mining town, and his aspirations to one day be a NASA engineer. Spoiler warning, that is exactly what he goes on to do. But, based on a true story here. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a
which
really
means that it's going to be sad, probably. Whenever something's based off of
probably.
a true story, yeah. It's going to tug at the heartstrings.
A little bit, a little bit. I mean, I love the way this film kind of starts out and kind of sets up the town. I didn't grow up in a coal mining town, really, right? And so being able to see how everybody wakes up in the morning and you go down to the mine shaft and you turn on your lamp as you're going down the shaft, and all of that, and the work that's being done there. And it's very hard work, right? And being able to see that it's not just a couple people that are doing this. It's the whole town is supported by this coal mine. And the way kind of the politics of what happens there and all of that really, I thought, was depicted very well, and with very little dialogue at the very beginning of the film, which I thought was really like kind of the heart of the motivations of why it was important for Homer to leave, why it was important for his father to want him to stay, all of those things.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. We're introduced to the town, pretty much straight away, and kind of these characters. We meet Homer, who's played by very, very baby-faced 17-year-old, I believe, Jake Gyllenhaal at the time is playing this character by the name of Homer. All right, we see him with a couple of his buddies. They're out for football practice. It turns out that Homer's big brother is destined for at least some okay things on the gridiron, possibly going off to college. So we're seeing that's kind of the way out of town, right? You either get a college football scholarship or you stay back home to work in the mines, which is what his dad does, right? John Hickam, played by Chris Cooper. Definite highlights of the film here for me is Chris Cooper in this role, and he always plays that kind of similar role. Anytime you've seen Chris Cooper, and you've seen him in 1,000 things, for sure. And yeah, it's really kind of flushing out the fact that this literally this town is owned by the coal mine, right? The coal mine owns the town, they own the stores, they own your house, they own everything. So you basically
Yep.
wake up in the morning and go to bed at night, and you are indentured to this coal mine kind of thing. But John is like, I don't know, he's like the top dog, right? He's kind of like the highest level there. He's kind of the go-between, I guess, between the company and the rest of his workers there. He's definitely the leader of this mine and has a very, kind of high ideal of what that is and how, honorable it is to do that kind of work and to support the town and to support your family. And one of my favorite things about the movie here, and we'll talk about some other kind of highlights here, is it's illustrated here at the beginning, but it never really like talks down like on the town. It does a very good job, I think, Joe Johnson, of not, painting this town out to be, a bunch of bumpkins, right? There
Right.
was honor in this time and place for these people, and I think that that is really neat. But a global event's about to happen that's going to change everything for young Homer.
Yeah. October 4th, 1957, Sputnik #1 is launched in the sky by the Russians, and it scares people. People are fascinated. You know, Chris Cooper's character, John Hickam, is like, this is just a flash in the pan. It's just a blip. It's just a stunt. It's not a big deal. What we do every day here in Coalwood is real. And so it was really interesting. I loved kind of the different takes that everybody had on this. And we've never been part of an event quite like that, done in that way, because we grew up thinking that space travel was completely possible, because in our day and age it was, right? So really atoning for the time, and having Miss Riley, who's the science teacher, be so supportive and fascinated by it, and really inspiring many of her students to think about it in a positive way, and how much work that must have taken to be able to create that rocket, and create Sputnik, and have it go learning all the facts. And
Mhm.
it really started to inspire this group of individuals sitting in her class every day.
Yeah, that's right. It inspired one of the kids by the name of Quentin, played by Chris Owen, the most, right? He was very fascinated by the scientific marvel that was happening. But, Homer and the rest of his friends, they weren't that interested, right? They were interested in football. They were interested in girls. They were interested in getting through school so they could go start making money in the coal mines. But then, fast forward to that night, to the night of the fateful flyby, you could go outside and see this thing, Miss Riley says. So they do. The town is like literally gathered outside to watch Sputnik go across. You get a really neat visual of kind of this little shooting star esque kind of thing going across the sky, and everyone in the town has kind of their own takeaways by it, right? The Russians are spying on us. They're just looking at all of our things. So that's kind of neat. So who cares about this that's in space? But Homer takes a bit of a different approach. He thinks that it is magical and fascinating, and he wants to know how to do that. So he's going to have to enlist the help of Quentin, that kid, that nerd. Sorry, Quentin, from class, right? At the risk of his own popularity, right? How are you going to get girls if you're hanging out with Quentin, Homer? You just have to start up the rocket group, and luckily, his other friends are going to come along for the ride too, Roy Lee and Odell, and they're going to form the Rocket Boys.
They're gonna form the Rocket Boys, and they hike to the edge of the coal company's property. And they try to set up a rocket. It does not go well. They blow up like half of his mom's fence that she spent
Hmm.
6 months waiting for. And I love this. I love some of the kind of the montages where they really have the determination, and they have to have it because they keep failing, and then they keep getting up and doing it again, and then they fail again, and then they keep getting up and doing it again. And like they're all so determined, and they're so fastidious about like trying new things and being creative. And I really loved that piece, because that's something that I think movies gloss over a lot, especially when based on a true story, of how hard this sort of stuff really was for them, right? I mean, none of
Hmm.
these kids, except maybe Quentin, who was quote unquote the math geek, right? Everybody else was just a kid. And even Miss Riley is telling Homer, hey, you're not real good at math. This is going to be real hard for you to do, man. I mean, I'm supportive, but come on now. I mean, and Homer's
Yeah.
dad is like, you're going to live in the mine. Like, this isn't, we'll be lucky if your brother gets a football scholarship. You're not going anywhere. So the fact that they have to fail so many times is really important, I think, to the reality of the story. Is this isn't just, hey, they did it a couple of times and it worked beautifully, and they won this science fair. It's really a get up, get up again, get up again, get up again kind of situation.
Yeah, it definitely paints the picture of how challenging this was for these kids, right? Because you're talking about doing something that, at the time, this technology was brand new to the whole world, right? They had the brightest minds in the world, working on stuff like this. So for some kids to come together and try to figure it out, and I like you get like the stuff like Homer's in the library, like trying to look up stuff about rockets. There isn't anything there. He's getting some information from Miss Riley. Quentin has a couple of books, but yeah, they're trying and failing, right? They blow up the fence, and then like the next one they shoot off like goes like over by the coal mine, kind of. So John's like, no more rockets on company property, right? Which is the whole town. So they have to hike out of town. It's like an 8 mile trek that they make, and they build their own kind of like a little launch pad. And then there's a montage of about 15,000 rockets that are just exploding, right? Which is bad news because rockets are expensive. You're high school kids. You don't really have much in the way of means, right? You got to start building these things. So what do? You start stealing the railroad track and all sorts of stuff that you can pawn off to get some money to buy things like milled like aluminum or stainless steel or whatever that was. You have to buy your fuel. You have to figure out how to mix up some fuel by stealing some moonshine from these people. These kids were excellent thieves, on a side note, as well as designing these rockets. So that's pretty good. And it's pretty good because you have a couple of allies, right? Miss Riley is a good ally, right? She's at school. She's very encouraging. Every time the principal comes in and is trying to be a jerk, Miss Riley, kind of gets him to cool his jets a little bit there. And you also have his mother, Elsie Hickam, played by Natalie Cannerday. She's good. She's seems to be a good mom. She is um, kind of, I don't know, like disenchanted, I guess, a little bit, right? This is just kind of the life that she's come up to lead, right? And is able to see her husband in loving eyes, even though Homer is pointing out the fault and that from time to time. She is still on board with the things that her husband is saying, but caught in that hard place, right? As a mother, wanting to see your son succeed and get out, but also understanding the reality of Homer's life there in Coal Town. So I think that she is an excellent character, kind of an anchor here for the story too.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think this movie paints a really excellent picture of kind of all of these pieces coming together. These four boys did a lot of things that nowadays, they steal. I mean, they it's quote unquote harmless stealing because they take like I don't know, rusted out nails from the from an old train track, and then there's a moment where there's a moment where they're not sure that maybe they did it to a track that was in commission, and that's really terrifying. But like certain people help them along the way, but it doesn't really matter as much to Homer Hickam as it would be if he just got his father's approval. And his father is really struggling, right? His father is running the coal mine. He's like one of the supervisors. He's the one who always gets a call if something is wrong. He really knows that mine. He's been working it his entire life. And to him, he's very proud of what he does. And he doesn't understand why Homer doesn't want to do that or why he thinks it's above him. And it is a huge sticking point between them. And I really love how they show Elsie Hickman, the wife and mother. I love her character, the way that she tries to be supportive of both of them and stay out of it until she's pushed beyond. She only hits the moment, once where she's like, no, enough is enough. We're going to support our son. But she, really tries to kind of balance that. And I think that was really well illustrated in the story overall, because there weren't a lot of people that could tell John Hickam, what to do and where to go. But she does when she needs to, when he really needs help. The boys have a chance to get into the science fair. There's a lot that ends up happening. And but they leave, I don't know, one of the main pieces that they're trying to show off on display, and it gets stolen, and they have to figure out a way to get that back, or to create another one in order to present at the science fair. And the only way to do that is to get the welding and the machining to continue. And that means John Hickam's going to have a conversation with the union that he doesn't want to have. He thinks that it's ridiculous that he should have to do that, but he does it for his son, and it's a really beautiful, piece of the story. And again, it is John Hickam that makes the decision, but I love that it's Elsie that it finally is like, we're doing this. Like, if you don't have to like it, but you are going to do it. You're going to support our kid because
Yeah.
he can be something else, and it's not better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah, and I mean there are other people around town, here within the coal mining family that are willing to help, right? So you have Ike Baikovsky there is working in the machine shop who does kind of the original welding for the boys and ends up getting in trouble for it. Literally sent down to the mines to work, taken out of his machine shop job there, and ends up losing his life in a mine collapse. Even though that was kind of his decision at that point to be there, which is good. And then Leon Bolton is also one of the workers there in the machine shop who helped kind of craft that missing piece of the puzzle for the boys out of this, kind of this high end uh titanium or whatever whatever it was, stainless steel that they needed to build this kind of nozzle that ends up getting stolen. I like the science fair portions, right? Because you see kind of the boys there at the science fair doing their presentation and things, and then they win, I guess, this kind of like regional science fair, and then it goes on to some national science fair. But of course, the town is small. The town doesn't have a lot of money, especially to send kids to science things. They probably could have sent the whole football team if it was a football thing, but can only send one of these students here for that, of course. So, of course, Homer is going to go as the representative. I like his one friend kind of gives him shtick about, he's like, oh, I can go. Let me borrow your suitcase, and he's like, no, you knucklehead, you're going to go there, Homer, and you're going to represent us and represent us well. I do wish that the movie would have focused a little bit more, maybe, on the science fair. It is pretty glossed over the fact that he's
Yeah.
there, other than that they kind of lose that. He does have a run-in with his I guess his math and science hero, right? Werner von Braun is there. Braun is there to look on, I guess, to this
Yeah.
science thing. It's kind of his idol in terms of rocket science. But as it turns out, the Rocket Boys are going to win that top prize. They win the grand prize there at the Science Academy, and now all of the boys are going to be able to go to college, which is something unheard of. Like I said, you either got out of this town playing college football or you stayed in town. But these four are going to find their way out by using their brains and figuring out how to set off rockets.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know. There's some differences between what happens in the book and what happens in the film, and some of that I think just makes for kind of a more compelling, more entertaining story, right?
Yep.
But one of the things that I really loved about this was the focus on like the actual math and science of it, as much as it really could be entertaining, right? Because not everybody is going to look at this and be like, oh, let's talk about differential equations and calculus, right? But there's a part where they actually get in trouble, the boys do, because there was a forest fire and somebody says, hey, I think it was one of your rockets that set it off, and they get arrested and all this. And Homer goes and he gets a book that had been given to him by Miss Riley, and he goes and he's able to prove mathematically that it could not have been his rocket. And he also, with Quentin's help, goes and does the math about trying to find where his rocket would be that they couldn't find, and then they go find it. They're like, I love it because they're talking about things and they're doing the math, and then they're like, hey, was it windy that day? Which changes the whole equation, right? It's like, well, where would that be? And how would we look at that? And then they end up finding it. And he ends up being able to prove how the learning has happened. And it's way more than anything that happened inside that classroom. Miss Riley was an amazing teacher, but they had to have that motivation. They had to do all of that extra work outside of that classroom to do what they did. And I really love that piece, that it shows that. And that Miss Riley at first, when there comes a point in the story where Homer ends up going down and spending some time in the mines working because his dad is injured and cannot. And she gets so mad at him, she won't even speak to him because she's like, she thinks that he's throwing away an opportunity to be able to go do more and be more. And she realizes the error in her ways. But I love that when they do win this giant award and they all kind of get options for scholarships, and it's, handshakes all around. The first thing he does when he gets back is try and go and see her and share this with her, and which is what, as a teacher, that's got to be like the icing on the cake, right? Like your big
Hmm.
job is to help people get to be where they want to be. And she really helped, inspired, and supported in that way. And that was something that, I was graduating from high school when this happened, when I saw this film, and it was definitely something that made me feel a much more appreciative of the teachers that I had in my life, and, going into university and things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of reconnects with her there after that standoffish or standoff bit that they have there when she turns a little bit disappointing eye towards him, I guess. But your family's got to eat, Miss Riley. So gotta do what you got to do
Yeah.
for sure. It's very much of like It's a Wonderful Life kind of thing right there, right? You have to
Yep.
ultimately you're burdened by the responsibilities that you have. So but yeah, so ends up, getting back out of the mines, which is really, really nice. I guess that was a bit of a divergence from the book there too. But it's good to see kind of that parallel side of it, right? Like what your life would be like, right, if you don't pursue your dreams. And that's exactly what happens. They go to the science fair and win. They win the kind of the top prize there, get their college scholarships. I like after he gets the top prize, there's a couple of universities there's giving them their
Hmm.
card and saying come here and study here and stuff like that, so that's pretty cool. And then gets back to town to very much a hero's welcome there. The town has turned out to show their support to him, and he goes to have kind of a final chat with his dad. Says we're going to be doing one last launch here before we head off on our ways, and I'd really like you to come. And of course dad's it's like, no, not gonna not gonna do that, kid. But then, of course, he shows up at the very end, and he gets offered to push that button, and they finally have that father son bonding moment. And he still, I mean, it does a really really good job. Like I said, probably my bright spot of the film here is Chris Cooper's portrayal of John Hickam, because even at the end, you still can't really tell like if he's like on board with it, but you can tell that he's just like proud of Homer and what
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
could accomplish. So I think that was really cool, and he does a really good job. Chris Cooper does of kind of conveying that and towing that line even through to the very end. And they have kind of the final launch there. Miss Riley is able to see the launch through the hospital window, which is nice. I don't know if that's true or not, but she does get to see it. The rocket is named after Miss Riley, and Dad's going to go and push that button and get our one last launch.
One last launch, and it goes like miles and miles into the air, which is so cool. It's really beautiful, and I don't really care if that's not true. I want to believe that the whole town, even if they were working the mines and they looked up in the sky, they saw it. And it's really neat. It's a testament to their love of science and their willingness to not give up, right? Their unwillingness to fail. I really love at the end, it shows kind of what happens to the town, what happens to all of the boys. They all go to college. Miss Riley, unfortunately, passes away. But Elsie Hickam, her dream was to go to Myrtle Beach and retire to Myrtle Beach. She does just that. One thing that they show, again, with her character is she's always in the kitchen painting this tapestry to Myrtle Beach because
Mhm.
that's what she wanted. And the one, her happiest memory is on her honeymoon when John Hickam gives her these like pieces of like tin glass that he found or
Mhm.
inside the mine, and he was like, these aren't diamonds, but they're worth, I wish they were diamonds. They're what I've got. And it's a really beautiful, touching moment. But at the end of the day, like, she didn't want anything fancy, right? She knew where she knew that her place was in that town, and being his wife and being a mom. And but I really love the way that they tell everybody's story, and how they lived out their lives, and how this affected all of them, right? And
Mhm.
even though the town ended up getting shut down 10, 11 years later, and the coal mine, the town got sold, the coal mine completely closed off, it inspired the people around them, right? Which is really what, that's how these things happen, right? Is these
Mhm.
towns, they're not that way anymore, and somebody had to break free. Somebody had to dare to fail spectacularly at something else.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely a coming of age story in that sense. And it does a good job of, you know, depending on what part of your life you're in. Michaela, you mentioned you saw this, at or around your senior year of high school. So obviously you would have identified very much more with Homer and his journey there in the story this time around. I assume you're looking at it through more of the eyes of his mother and father there in that sense, the teachers. So, like any other good coming of age story, it's going to play differently depending on your own kind of coming of age story that you're in your own life and how that's going to reflect. And that's it, right? It goes through, kind of all the boys, went on to do something, right? To go, they all went to college and got some careers, and then Homer ended up going to college and then getting a job at NASA, which was what he wanted to do, and that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome to go just seeing Sputnik one day and saying I can do that to figuring out how to do it and making that dream a reality. This is a very much emotional, heartfelt thing. So it's got all those kind of tried and true emotional swells in your music there. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, and that's fun. And this is a good story. I think that it's nice. And like I said, one of my favorite part I think about it was, like I said at the top, it didn't like downplay this town, right? As something to look down your nose at. It was, kind of just very matter of fact, what it was. And if you grew up, kind of in that part of the country, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Western New York, you probably are familiar with people like this and the way that they grew up and things. So I like the portrayal of them there. My biggest kind of complaint about the movie is it felt a little slowly paced from time to time. I could have done a little bit of trimming down on it. I think it felt a little bit long in the tooth a couple of times to me, but overall, this is a pretty good watch. This was the first time that I'd seen it, and I thought it was a really neat story, and I thought the acting performances were good. Even young babyface Jake Gyllenhaal was really good in this. So
Yeah, I agree. It's something that I am super excited to show my kiddo. He didn't get to watch it while I was watching it for the sake of the podcast, but I'm really excited to show it to him because it's a really good story of, Miss Riley said it best, what you want, and you have to listen to yourself. You can't listen to anybody else, not even me. And I think that is something that, it's a good coming of age story for sure. Something we can all remember to do.
Absolutely. So that is October Sky. Let us know if you managed to catch this back in 1999 from the box office return there. Doesn't look like you probably did, but maybe you've seen it in the time since. It's available to rent on any of your rental places on your TV that you can connect to online. So you can do that and check it out. And it's worth the watch, right? And it gets you into the mood for fall, and it gets you into the mood, I guess, for school, right? I guess school's starting back up too. So it hits on that level too. So let us know what you think about October Sky, and let us know if you mix up a hot spiced apple with gin. Let us know that. We want to see that and see pictures of yours. Or like I said, if you have any other hot spiced apple cocktails, send those our way too. You can do that on any of our social media. It's at Drink the Movies on Instagram, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. If you want to see pictures of ours, episode recaps, links to Drink the Video Games, to the merch shop, to the Patreon, you can do that on www.drinkthemovies.com. That's the best place to go and get all that information. One handy place there. So check that out. We appreciate that. And we appreciate people that check out the podcast, get subscribed, leave us some reviews. That's very helpful to us. That's even more helpful than Miss Riley. So can do that. So Michaela, where can people do that?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, anywhere where Spotify podcasts are supported and distributed. If you're liking what you're hearing, you can always subscribe. We love that. If you're really liking it and you want to spread the Drink the Movies love, leave us a review. Spread us out on social media. Tell your friends. We only get to do what we get to do because of listeners like you, and we're so grateful for it. Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let us know what you thought about October Sky, and we'll catch you next time on
Drink
the Movies.
I love it when he's doing the math and he goes over to the principal and he's like, "Are you catching this, Mr. Hickman or Mr. Sterling? Are you catching this, Mr.?"
Catching this. Not even a single poster of the Rocketeer in this movie. 0 stars.